Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Good morning, Nicola Cairncross. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Judith Morgan?
I'm good, actually. January 2020 has broken the pattern of my Januaries in my life, and this has been a good month. Normally, I find it absolutely the hardest. I find it long and dark and cold. It hasn't really been any of those things this year, and staying at my friend's farm, I found very healing. No kitty litter for starters, no pooper scooping, no chores, no master and slave, which, as you know, I sometimes feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll carry on talking about my week since I went first.
Yeah.
I've had my first outings this week in 3 weeks, but after the floods dropped, the roads reopened, my cold cleared up. And, I had my second jaunt yesterday. We've had unexpected sunshine again this week. And my other excitement of the week, weird, but I know you'll get it, is I'm chuffed to discover, after all these years, that I am one domain name away from getting down to the only three I think I'll ever need, which is my own name, my company name, and yourwealthprofile.com. What a waste of time and money and effort and thought, and how long it takes to disentangle yourself from all of those.
Yes, I've got only a very few set to auto-renew now, and as they come up and I let them slip away, I celebrate each one.
Yeah, me too, and I only auto-renew those three, exactly right, and that's why I see them sort of falling off my awareness, which is very sort of cleansing.
It is, it's very cathartic, because
yes.
you've only been paying $10 a year, or for the actual domain name, but sometimes they come back and to renew them is a bit more expensive because they get you in on those cheap deals. But
well, you say only that, but we've had at times in our joint and separate lives, we've had loads of them following the pattern set for us by Thomas Leonard, who would create a URL for every single thought, if you remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, I can often remember where I was and what I was thinking when I bought each one.
Well, when you had the brain fart that led to the purchase of it, yes.
Exactly. The early morning or middle of night brain fart.
Genius idea, indeed.
Typing with one eye and one finger to secure that fantastic brain name. To make the difference between your fortunes of succeeding and not.
Success and failure, yeah. I mean, and there is a terrible sort of disappointment, isn't there, when you're either working on your own project or, in my case, with clients, when you can't get the URL that goes with the gorgeous name that you've invented.
And you can't get the .com. It's got easier nowadays because there's lots of sexy suffixes.
I'm not sure they're all that sexy, to be honest.
Well, yeah.
Because I think some of them are confusing. Tom Evans uses .co. Well, that would just throw everybody, and because it's neither .co.uk nor .com. I think you've got to train people, and we know people are not very trainable.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your customers going to type? I mean,
I
still believe in a good old .com.
So do I. I'm a .com snob. To add to all my other snobbishness, I'm a .com snob.
Just to add to your BBC snobbishness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So anything else this week?
No.
Can you tell us about your outings?
No.
Oh, okay. Secret outings.
No, they weren't secret. I've written about them all over Facebook, but they're mainly just driving in a trance and having interesting conversations inside my own head.
Oh, okay. Chatting to yourself, marvellous.
Yeah. My Facebook friends is up to 138.
Yeah.
I'm auditing every week. I think I've it was 125. I think I've put on 13 this week. Yeah.
Okay, that's very odd, isn't it? Very
well,
odd.
I mean, in the olden days before this started, I'd be lucky I've put on 13 in a year, quite frankly.
Yes. That's very. Obviously, I haven't been targeted yet, and I shan't be. But I'm.
Well, it's a mixed blessing. It's a mixed blessing. Yeah. Honestly, it is.
I've been focusing much more on LinkedIn, so that's where my energy's been. And talking of energy and things shifting, I started a new series of video ads running last week. I went to, I saw a great ad. What it was a Black Panther walking towards me in the timeline. And I thought, oh, that's a great ad. Just, simple power, grace, beauty. And it just stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do some video ads that were as powerful as that. So I went off to my favourite video place to get royalty-free video, and that's Invato. And it's where actually I got a lot of the audio for our podcast when I started. And I used to actually pay it's painful now to remember this. I used to pay $10 a week to get our podcast picture for royalty free until, I think it was Sarah told me about Unsplash. And now I get such great pictures from Unsplash for free, but I obviously, spent a bit of money in the past. But I wanted good pictures. That was the main thing. But I found some lovely videos, and I went through and I just put into a portfolio all the ones that I liked, that I found were simple and arresting. And I'm now split testing them on my usual 4-layer ad campaign, which is where you run a video that's very arresting. In fact, I've got a black cat blinking at you as if he's looking at a mouse. And I'm running an ad along the lines of, do you want to keep your ads secret from your competitors?
Sorry, where are you running these ads?
On Facebook.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and do you want to keep your ads secret from your competitors? And the other one was, are your competitors watching you? So I'm just running sort of various ad copy to go with being watched or watching people or whatever, and seeing which one works. But it's a very arresting image, because a black cat with green eyes just looking at you as if you're a mouse is quite startling. And that's getting incredibly cheap clicks through to the website. They're not turning into, as yet, most wanted actions, which are to opt in for the digital briefing or to make an appointment to talk to me. But what I'm then doing is following up with those people and some other people as well. I'm split testing a layer of ads against the people who watch 25 to 50% of that first video, against people who like Gary Vee, against people who've got MD and CEO in their job description. So I'm split testing audiences with a series of other ads that are just videos, and one of them's nice. It's a whale swimming along, and it does a great big leap and a splash. So I'm going with something quite obvious there. Would you like to make more of a splash with your marketing? And that's being shown only to people who've engaged with my page, visited the website, or watched 25% of that first video. So that's an engaged audience remarketing. And the funny thing is, I immediately got 2 inquiries from running those ads, and well, I thought they were, and I got really excited. And one of them turns out to be from someone who knows Heather and Katie, used to travel around the world singing with the Monteverdi choir, and now he has a consultant running one of them, or running the marketing for one of them. And this chap had referred me because he's heard Heather and Katie talking about me so much. So that didn't come from the ads at all.
No.
The other one was, I had lunch this week with both grown-up businesses, both proper multi-million grown-up businesses. And I had lunch with a chap the other day who was referred by Pete Harm, my mate.
Yes.
He has a lovely business. It's about bringing in this special kind of wood that they use in Scandinavian countries and Canada, which is eco-friendly. It's much better than bricked on the environment to produce. It means that you can put up a house in 4 days that would take 5 weeks on a wet, soggy building site where you're trying to wait for the cement to, harden, prove? What does cement do?
No, go off.
I should know this because
I don't know. Does it go off? I have a feeling it goes off.
Yes, I think it does. I think you're right. I had a cement expert client once. I
remember. I think he listens to the podcast. I think
Nick Winter.
Yes, he'll be tutting, I think.
I know, Nick. If you could tell me what cement does, that'd be marvellous. I have forgotten, surprisingly. And that was a really nice lunch because, again, I was told in advance he didn't have a big marketing budget, but he does have a marketing budget, which is nice. And he doesn't want to do it himself anymore. So that's even nicer. And we got on really, really well. He brought his little daughter along who was being homeschooled, and she was extremely intelligent. And we had quite a good conversation. Shook hands very well, Judith, I thought, for a youngster. So that was a good week. But neither of the inquiries came from the ads.
Yes, I'd just like to point that out because we've debated on this podcast over the years how unwilling you are to rely upon word of mouth, and yet your 2 leads this week came via that route.
But I've got a really strong feeling, now I'm a lot more woo-woo, that I think starting the ads running stirred something in my
I agree. I think that what we've all got to do is get up in the morning and do stuff, put out energy. And I think the results come from a completely different direction, but they don't come at all unless you've done the first.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I do feel that. And let's face it, these ads are costing me £3.50 a day, one of them, and £3 a day on the other one. So it's not, like I'm pushing the boat out here. But I feel it stirred the energetic field around me and got the old law of attraction working towards me. So that was good. And what fueled your fire this week then?
Three things, actually. An artist sharing a copy of her book stash with a well-thumbed copy of mine at the top of the pile.
I saw that. That's
yes, and her message saying mine was her current favourite. And underneath me, there was a list of authors including Lucian Freud and Grayson Perry, famous artists.
Nice.
No, it was very exciting.
It was well thumbed, yours, wasn't it? It was
very well thumbed. It had a curly cover because it had been, yes. Anyway, another one, Jo, who listens to our podcast, wrote to tell me how much she'd enjoyed the book. And she said, I love your voice coming through loud and clear throughout. I particularly appreciated all the stuff about always being able to change one's mind. A good reminder to me that I make up rules for myself, but I can just as easily break them or change them. And she described our podcast as entertaining, which was nice.
Oh, good.
And my third one was I had a private message 1 week on from somebody who'd had their first one free session, sharing with me how different her Friday was from just 1 week before, which is, I'd made a difference to that one.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, nice.
You?
Well, my masterclass subscription, which I was shocked to look back and discover was 170 odd quid, which I gaily, without a thought, bought when I was in Australia last year. But which has actually given me great value to that amount and beyond. I've been watching Aaron Sorkin, who wrote West Wing.
Yes, I mean, that's worth 170 quid alone, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, honestly, I've watched Neil Gaiman, who I absolutely love. I've watched Shonda Rhimes, who wrote Grey's Anatomy, another of your favourites.
Yes.
And lots of lovely, lovely things she's written. And Aaron Sorkin is very entertaining because his masterclass includes something that I haven't seen in the other two, which is where he sits around a room with other writers who are aspiring up and coming, and he's masterclassing them. And they all do what's called a table read, where they read 10 pages of their work. You don't see all 10 on the masterclass. You see sort of the first, 2 or 3, I suppose. And then they discuss each other's work, and he gives them fantastic tips. And I've got to say, for 170 odd quid over the last year, I've learned so much from this masterclass thing.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
It's a good site, isn't it? So are you telling us this because it auto-renewed?
No, it's not. I'm not sure whether I'm going to auto-renew because there's not really many more people on there that I want to learn from. But I've started watching Tarantino interviews on YouTube. So, you really can learn anything. If I'm really cram learning and deep diving on this, and I'm really enjoying it. And I told you last week I'd had a turning point with my novel. But this week, Aaron said something very interesting. He said, agents want to take on writers with lots of ideas and lots of projects, because what you're writing, it can take up to 2 years, even if your screenplay gets picked up. And you've got to keep yourself busy in the meantime, because there's many a slipper twixt cup and lip. So if you've got lots of projects in development, then writers, agents are going to know that you're not going to be terribly cast down if something doesn't work, or you've got lots of. They want to know there's a whole string of things coming up behind. So Aaron said, if you're not, rather than trying to develop your own ideas, if you're one of those people for whom new ideas don't come very prolifically, why not take one of your favourite authors and either try and turn their book into a film, or turn some of their short stories into screenplays for a series. And that made me remember Michael Marshall Smith, who I got into. He's a sort of sci-fi writer who I really like. He's got a very sparse, terse style, and it's very darkly humorous, a bit like Ray Bradbury, but sci-fi. And I thought, I left all those books in Greece because my client, Jay, sent me 5 or 6 of them in a package just as a present because he thought I'd like it, and I did like it a lot. And I thought, I left them all in Greece. And so I've just used one of my Amazon Christmas presents, what they call gift vouchers, to order the whole suite of Michael Marshall books. So I'm going to be either looking at some of his short stories, which I remember reading on the beach in Greece and loving, into a series of television shows, a bit like, what was that one, the mysterious sort of horror series that had a girl dancing, at the beginning in the 70s.
Oh, yes. Tales of the Unexpected.
That's it. Oh,
yeah.
my God. See, I think some of his stories would turn into...
Hush My Mouth, Nicola, but I think that was on ITV.
Oh, they did turn something good out then.
I might not have been such a snob in the 70s or 60s or whatever it was.
Not.
Yeah.
No.
Well, do you know what you've just described?
What?
Given that the Oscars and the BAFTAs are coming up soon, you've just described the difference between the awards they give out for Best Original Screenplay and Best Adapted Screenplay.
Ah, okay.
So what you're talking about now is screenplays that are adapted screenplays from somebody else's material, which of course happens all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. That man that writes, I don't know whether he writes Downton Abbey, but that posh chap that adapts all the...
Julian Fellows.
Yes, he's a wizard at adapting.
Yeah, he did write Downton from scratch, but I know what you mean.
But all those other things he does, like Emma and all those, Jane Austen things, he adapts. Sense and Sensibility, I think that was Emma Thompson actually, but he adapts.
Yeah,
and it's a fine art. It's not a lesser art at all. It's a distinction, quite important distinction actually.
Because you have to love the subject matter.
Well, you have to be able to represent it well on the screen. How many times do we go to see a movie from a book and we're disappointed, and vice versa? Yeah.
Grantchester is an adaptation from, I think it was Bishop Rumsey wrote them, the Grantchester series, but it's adapted by the same woman, Daisy something, who I think wrote Deadwater Fell, which I'm really enjoying a lot. Because I've got two other ideas for screenplays. One about a writing club, like I was in a writing club in Greece. And the other one is, it's completely gone out of my head what the other one is. But I just thought, if I've got lots of things on the go, that when I get stuck, I know this is the opposite to what we say in business, if you get stuck on one, move to another one. But I think in the creative realm, it's possibly a little bit more valid. So I'm looking forward to those books arriving and reading them again. And I've also found a new course. So if I don't get into the BBC Writers' Room, and I don't get onto that course in Beaconsfield, wherever that is, well, I've been accepted for that, but it's whether I can. I want to spend the money. There is another one by Curtis Brown, who's an agent actually, who represents Michael Marshall Smith for his writing, and they've got
also a publisher, Curtis Brown.
Yeah, and they represent all sorts of kind of talented people, and they've got a new screenwriting course being launched in the spring, and they've got a full 100% bursary for it. So I might apply for that.
Yeah,
keeping busy on the writing front, Judy.
Yes, excellent.
Good. So what's the focus of the week this week?
Well, I noticed two of my clients discussing this amongst themselves on Monday morning, and I ummed and ahed about jumping in with my big 2 feet in my opinion, and I decided not to. And I thought, actually, we could debate it here, because I know you and I will take opposite sides on this, which always leads to, or I suspect we might. Social media do's and don'ts 1 and 2. Number 1 is the pros and cons of social media scheduling tools like Buffer, Post Planner, and if they even still exist, TweetDeck and Hootsuite. Do they still exist?
They do still exist, some of them. I don't know who uses them, though. I certainly don't, because I firmly believe you get penalised for you, but there might be some that you don't get penalised for using, so a listener may be able to enlighten us on that one. But I did hear about a new one the other day. What was it? No, I can't remember, but apparently it's one used by lots of the top fashion brands to do all their scheduling with, and it was very beautiful looking, I have to say, so it's obviously targeting that market. It's targeting the kind of people who do the social media for things like Kylie Cosmetics and Louis Vuitton and people like that.
I think it's interesting you use the word brands there, because my 2 clients on Monday morning were not either of them a brand. And I think that what the scheduling tools do, this is my opinion, is they're better than nothing. So you can schedule stuff when you're going to be away. But honestly, I don't think anybody notices if you're away. But they promote broadcasting, not engagement. And engagement is what I think social media is all about. So if somebody's using them, I can tell. They're not there. They're just filling up. They're just filling up content because they think it's something they ought to do.
Well, it's really interesting you should say that, because on Who or What's Impressed, I'm going to talk about something I've just discovered this week, which I want to recommend people look at. But I've got to say, you share a lot, and a lot of lovely stuff, actually, and some of it's been amazing this week. But I know you've talked about you belong to pages where you find this stuff, but how do you schedule it? Do you actually just share it spontaneously?
No, I never schedule anything. Scheduling
Right.
never worked for me. I spent a lot of time in I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2018 scheduling. It doesn't do anything for me because you remember that book that I really love by Danny Iny, which is called, I forget what it's called.
Danny Iny, I interviewed him.
Yeah, I'll look it up in a minute. It's really an important book for me. In fact, I'll Google it while I'm talking to you. I don't think social media is about broadcasting, unless you're a brand where you're just putting out content on your Facebook page that promotes your brand, manages your brand. I think the best social media I see is where the brands have a responsive person. For instance, and this is not a good example, but it is an example. When I had that situation a month ago where I wanted juices and they couldn't be delivered by Ocado, and Plenish delivered them to me across London by bike twice in a week, do you remember, including some free ones?
Yeah.
I went on their Facebook page and said something nice about that. And somebody did reply to that, but only yesterday. So that's not engagement. That's, oops, has anybody been to the Facebook page to see what's going on there?
Yeah, yeah. Whereas I shared something this week from the Ritz-Carlton in Aruba.
I know. I saw it. That is a perfect example.
I hadn't even tagged them. They just picked up on it
Yeah.
and replied to me. It was lovely.
Yeah. Somebody doing a good job where it's almost in real time if it's done well. Now, if you're going to be away, as my client is, then that's fair enough. And I think that the gurus recommend that these tools are used to be efficient, actually, to be efficient. No, I don't think they recommend them as backup. I think they recommend them to busy people who say things like, oh, social media is a waste of time, and they encourage them to get content out by scheduling it. And I tell you what I see as well, you were kind enough to say I share a lot of good stuff. What I see is people saving those and scheduling them to go out later.
Well, when I said as a backup, what I meant was as a backup to make sure you're sharing something, which means that, by using the scheduling tools, you've got bare minimum going out, and then you can then interact on top naturally with the stuff.
That's what I did, and that's what I did, and it didn't make any difference. But I think I'm selling something different from what your brand is selling to with those names that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I think if you've got
beautiful Sorry, carry on.
If you've got beautiful things that share, I mean, like Kim, my friend who does the luxury hampers, they do beautiful sharing on Instagram and their Facebook page. And they get a lot of traction with that because people like to share beautiful things.
Yes.
What were you going to say?
Nothing, really. I just think nothing. I think my point is you can tell the difference. I can tell you're not there, is my point.
Yes, but then if you mixed a bare minimum of scheduled stuff with actual live sharing of things you enjoy and like, I think you've got to put your stamp of your personality on it on your social media. Otherwise, what's the point? It's I see it especially on LinkedIn, because I'm spending a lot more time on LinkedIn nowadays, which actually is really good for engagement. People put questions up, and they do get lots of replies. I mean, Steve Bartlett shared something the other day, and he's had, I don't know, over 100 replies. But even people who are not as well known as him are putting stuff up and provoking things. Angela Durrant is doing a really good job over on LinkedIn. If you want to go,
let's go back to the point about the bare minimum. If you're putting that on your Facebook page, nobody's going to notice whether you're doing that or not if you're away, because nobody sees your Facebook page unless you're paying to promote it.
Unless you're paying to boost things.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's pointless, really.
Which is interesting because it sort of contradicts what I'm going to tell you later on. But yeah.
Well, my second half of this goes to exactly the point you just made, which is the pros and cons of paying someone to do your social media for you. I always think it shows, and when I know people are doing it, I hesitate to engage with it, because what's the point? Because then I'm engaging with their social media manager, not with them.
Yeah. A good social media manager would engage as if they were you, though.
Yeah, but you can tell. Again, yeah. I can tell.
Yeah, you can.
So actually, what people are doing there is box ticking.
Are they box ticking, or are they just keeping the old energy flow stirred up a bit?
I don't think there's any energy in somebody else doing it for you or you scheduling it. It's efficiency. Yeah. That's it. Efficiency and scale. For instance, those I can't remember already. I keep forgetting the names of those brands you just mentioned. But of course, the head honcho is not doing that. So this is different depending on the type of business. But when you said the thing about stamping your personality on it, I think that's a very hard thing for somebody else to do in your voice. There's one exception to that, which is the girl called Penny, who was my assistant in my accounting business for a very long time, who would occasionally lodge with me between boyfriends and things like that. She often looked after me in a domestic sense, because she had been both a nanny and a receptionist beforehand, and she could do many things in my life as precisely as I would.
Yeah.
But that's the only person I've ever met who could do that. I would always do it some other way, but I think it depends what you're selling, because we're selling different things. You're on LinkedIn, you're not promoting you, are you?
No,
exactly. So I think it's different if it's a business. I'm always promoting me, and for that reason I would engage, not broadcast, and I think the tools are for broadcasting, and I would do my own because the same reason.
Yeah, I do enjoy doing it when I've got time to do it, but it is scary how long a period can pass without you doing anything if you haven't either got someone doing it for you or scheduling tools.
Well, I think if you enjoy it and you make it a statement of intent and you think of it like work, then a day doesn't pass. And to be fair to these clients on Mondays, they were talking about getting out content when they were away from their desk for, I think, 2 weeks. I mean, there's a use for them, but I think it shows.
I did have a social media manager once, I remember, Inga, and she was very good, and she used to do stuff that could definitely have been me, because I gave a very, a good brief, and she used to make, there was a brand identity to what she did, which I barely bother with most of the time, and but I did used to startle me sometimes, because she would either pick topics or pick pictures that I would never have chosen. And it really was quite startling when you see stuff in your name that's purports to come
and that would upset me, because it's skewed. It's skewed then, isn't it?
Yeah, she never did things that were offensive or anything like that.
No.
I really got upset about. But it just sometimes gave me a bit of a jolt, thinking that I'd released that, but I hadn't. Of course, it was her.
Yes.
I got fooled by my own social media.
I'd love it if you could remember later, or look up for me the name of the one that you couldn't remember just now, because then I could put it in the show notes.
What, Danny Inney's book?
No. You said there was a new tool.
There is, and I'm going to tell you about it in Who or What's Impressed.
No, the one you couldn't remember. There was one you couldn't remember the name of.
Ah, yes, the one I just stumbled across this week.
Yes.
I did pin it to my Chrome thing, thinking I'll have a look at that later, and then, of course, my computer turned itself off and on again, and I lost it.
Okay. If you could know where you saw it, or you could look it up.
I know what I can do. I can look at it in my history. No, I'll have to send it to you.
Send it to me later.
Okay. Yeah. It had a one-word name, as they do.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I think a bit of hunting I'll be able to find it easily enough. But it did look lovely, I must say. But it's probably quite expensive if it's aimed at brands. Their ideal client's a brand, not a solopreneur.
These other ones don't cost very much, do they? Aren't TweetDeck and Hootsuite free?
Yeah, I think they've definitely got free levels.
But I think Buffer is probably costs. I'm not sure about Post Planner.
Meet Edgar was one that I thought
yes.
for a long time. But
yes.
It seemed to go downhill, and then it seems to have revived itself back up again. So might be worth looking at that. I think what I do with my Be Everywhere Online thing is I show people how to create the content, and I show people how to stagger it. So they're putting one day a week, they're putting a different bit of content onto each platform, but only one. So, you go and put up your bit of content you created last week onto LinkedIn this week and on Monday, and then on Facebook page on Tuesday, and then on Twitter on Wednesday. And some of that would be automated, because of course Twitter can be fired off from your blog post, and I don't think Twitter's any the worse for it. But I know that all of our Own It podcasts get tweeted by my blog.
Yes, I certainly don't think that's a problem.
No. So I think it's about looking at how personal you want each platform to be. I mean, I've never done anything on Pinterest, for example, although I probably my ideal clients for the Academy would definitely be on Pinterest, but they certainly wouldn't be for clicks and needs. So I think it depends what you're focusing on and where your customers are.
I do think there was two things arising from what you've just said. I certainly don't think there's a problem when you publish a blog post with that being auto distributed everywhere that you want it to be seen, because that just makes sense, because it's like you're pressing publish. So it's like, buying a newspaper or seeing the article online. I don't think that's a problem at all. And I remember something that Veronica Pullen taught me once, which is that the audiences on these different platforms are different. So if you created content that's ideal for, say, Twitter, making people watch it or see it on Facebook is like inviting them to a conference room to watch a video of something that's going on somewhere else.
Yes. So that's where the upload natively argument comes in. And that's where I really would recommend that people do.
Explain what upload natively means for the uninformed.
If you've got a video and you put it on your blog, say perhaps with a transcription or whatever, then that blog post gets tweeted automatically, and it can also get fed onto your Facebook page automatically. But you won't get as much traction with it, and as you won't get as much traction if you share a YouTube video onto Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, as if you go to your Facebook page and upload that video natively.
Yes.
And if it's under 10 minutes, you can also upload it natively to LinkedIn and Twitter. Instagram stories are now Instagram TV is now taking videos up to 10 minutes, whereas Instagram stories only take videos up to a minute. So TikTok will take videos up to a minute. You have to know each platform, but a Google search will tell you. But for example, we weren't doing anything on LinkedIn at all, and I've really largely ignored it over the years, but I had somehow accumulated 3,500 contacts. But I've started sharing, as you know, our 10-minute snippets from Own It, which actually doesn't take that long at all. And traction I'm getting over there, it's quite astonishing. Instead of 4 people a day looking at my profile, I'm getting sort of 30, 40, 50, 60 some days just from sharing. But I'm uploading that video natively to LinkedIn. It wouldn't work if I was sharing a YouTube video.
So you have to know your platforms.
Yes.
And the thing you just said about uploading natively goes to a point you made earlier on, and I've forgotten it now, but I did make the connection just now. It's the one you opened with. I can't remember. But, therefore you're handling it manually, aren't you?
Yes, but there's ways to systemize that makes it feel more effortless. For example, I do 5 of our videos on a Monday morning, and by batching the job, it makes it much more effortless because you get into the flow and you've got the right tabs open on your browser, and because there's a little process with this, because we used good photos in the early days, but we had different branding. So I'm rebranding each 10-minute video with our new branding rather than our old branding. So it involves me going and finding the old photo, which I've kept, and going to Canva and using a template over there and making a new thing, for each episode. And then I have to import that into my, what's it called? I don't know, Camtasia ScreenFlow. Then I have to download the audio from the website, and then I have to put the two together. I have to render them. I have to compress them, and it sounds a laborious task, but actually I can do 5 videos in an hour quite easily because you get into the flow of doing it in a little rhythm.
But the process you described just lost most of us.
I know.
Yeah.
It's actually easy tasks, and my VA could do it, but as you know, she's in the middle of dodging a volcano at the moment, so I'm not delegating anything to her beyond the absolute basics. But really, an hour on a Monday morning is well spent because that gives me something to upload natively every day to LinkedIn. You can't pre-schedule on LinkedIn at all. That's one of the annoying things. Otherwise, I could have them all pre-scheduled and forget about them for the week.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's good because it makes me go over to LinkedIn and have a look and interact with people over there that I like. So
exactly, yeah.
So I think, it can become part of your routine. It can be systemized to make it easier. It can be batch done, which makes it even easier again.
Or not. I just want to, I mention this a lot, and I think it's important to get it across. One is broadcasting, which means you shout out something from somewhere and you don't care whether anybody engages with it or not. You are a natural broadcaster.
I am, yeah.
You're a natural broadcaster, and I'm a natural engager. So they're the 2 different styles.
Yeah, I'm making more effort now to engage with other people's content.
Yeah.
To go over and comment on and thoughtfully comment too, not just like and say fantastic, but actually to thoughtfully comment. And actually one of my comments on Steve Bartlett's recent post has had something like 35 likes. And
now you see, you do something different there when you're talking to people like him, and I've seen you do it on Twitter as well. You're actually trying to connect with movers and shakers.
I genuinely respect what they're talking about. I'm not trying to make contact and become their friend. I'm just trying to let them know I appreciate their content. So I don't want to be their friend or go and work for them.
No, but that's why, I mean, the way that you behave on Twitter is the way it's recommended that we do behave on Twitter, because it's a way of reaching people who could be useful.
Yeah, I must admit, with authors, I am being a bit of a girly fangirl. Yeah,
I did see but that's what I was referring to.
Yes.
There was a shameless piece of that yesterday.
Yes.
A shameless piece. I thought to myself, what a hussy.
Terrible, really. But it works though. They do reply. I had a lovely reply from John Connolly, one of my favourite authors at the moment, recently. He emailed me personally, which was nice.
Marvellous. So they're all susceptible to that. I found Danny Inney's book, which I really like. It's one that he wrote with lots of other people, but it is under his brand, Engagement from Scratch: How Super Community Builders Create a Loyal Audience and How You Can Do the Same. And I read it years ago, and I've still got it on my Kindle, and I've recommended it for ages, and it's great.
He's one of the ones that I really, 150 people, there were about 50 that I really enjoyed, and I remember their content from when I interviewed.
Yeah, because he's an engager, not a broadcaster. The broadcasters come, speak to you for their purposes, and then it's off. Whereas he's doing it another way, which is by relationship building.
Yeah, he was good. And if you want to look up, if you just search his name, Danny Inney, Business Success Factory, you'll find him, a podcast episode.
I think there's another point in here, actually, which we missed at the beginning, which is before they decide to broadcast or engage or a mixture of both, or use a social media tool or a social media person, you've got to try and work out what it is you want to achieve by your output on social, by being on social, bothering with it at all.
Yeah. And whether your ideal client's likely to be there, because there's no point in doing any of it if it's not. Is there any point in doing any of it?
No, there's not. There's not. If it's wide of the mark, it's like archery or shooting a gun, but not at the target.
No, but some people use social media for fun. Not everyone's doing it for marketing.
No, but in the context of this podcast, we're talking about marketing, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
And I have no social media use for fun at all.
I think I would carry on using. I mean, at the moment, TikTok I use for fun, just for distraction sometimes, where I'm in a queue or something.
I think we've done this one, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that we've done it. So we think social media is worth doing as long as you can identify your ideal client, where they are, and do it in a way that suits you.
Yeah, and that's a good match for your ideal client.
Yes, and do it on the platforms and.
And I've called this do's and don'ts. I wasn't sure whether to call it pros and cons, but as with everything in life and in business, there's Arthur and Martha. There's A or there's B, and you've got a decision to make: A or B, or mix and match.
Yes.
If you've got a good reason.
You just reminded me of Steve. He used to say, "I don't know whether I'm an Arthur or a Martha today."
No, he didn't know whether he was an Arthur or a Martha. That's true.
Right, so word of the week then, Judith.
Yeah, mine's driving. I've put here Miss Judith, like driving Miss Davy, because of all the wonderful trance-like realizations and thinking I'm able to do behind the wheel, which I really adore. And I missed it in those first 3 weeks where, for all those weather reasons and road closure reasons, I couldn't get out of the house, and driving around in the sunshine, and it's just fab, really.
Yeah, it was. Even I drove around in the sunshine yesterday.
Yeah.
Sarah and I drove to Cambridge and back 3 hours each way without even the radio on or a podcast or anything. We were just either in contemplative silence or idle chit-chat.
Well, contemplative silence is a wonderful thing.
It is.
Especially with another person.
Yeah.
Because actually quite a lot of people find that difficult and embarrassing. I've got to fill the silence.
Yeah. No, I like it.
What's your word?
It's right, funnily enough, because...
Spelt how?
WRITE.
Okay.
And the reason is I see a lot of people writing great long blog posts, and some do it really, really well and talk about good stuff in a really eloquent fashion. But I often see people with spelling mistakes where they're using one word but spelling it like another word, which I am able to overcome I wonder if anyone else even notices.
I notice everything, and if I had enough time, I would edit the entire internet, and I would penalise people for not spelling and mistakes particularly, because we all do that, but the use of an apostrophe when they mean plurals. Oh dear.
Yeah, no, but no, I'm specifically talking about
misspelling.
Yeah.
So that it changes the word or the sense, you mean, or what?
It changes the word, but I think most people reading it wouldn't think it changed the sense. I think they'd just take the word on face value, and I don't even know if it matters anymore so much, because...
Well, I know what you're saying, because actually, and also we're not reading, we're skimming.
Yes, that's true.
And funnily enough, when I listen back to our podcast, we do it as well. We make mistakes. We use the wrong word. We miss it. We miss what each other's trying to say. There's 2 or 3 examples, classics, quite recently. So it's all too easy to do, us human beings, to make mistakes.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
But I'm with you. Yeah. Are there any proofreading tools?
Well, I use Grammarly. That does.
Yes. Yes.
If you're misspelling and it puts in a proper word, you're misspelling, but you change it to it's accidentally a proper word as well. Grammarly
yes.
Pick that up.
No, that's true. Unless it changes the sense and the sentence doesn't make sense anymore. As we know, we don't really like Grammarly 100%.
No, it's all right, but it tells me when which I do a lot, not putting a hyphen in 2 words together.
Yes.
Where I should do.
Well, no, it's where it thinks you should, because we don't hyphenate as many things as the Americans do.
Oh, okay.
So that's a choice when it shows you that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been really...
and then if you cared, you can go off and Google it.
Yeah, good point. If you cared.
Well, I think that's the point of your person who's writing, isn't it? I mean, if they're a writer, I was going to make a judgment, but I don't think I will. I was going to say if they're a writer and they're misspelling. I mean, the reason for grammar and spelling and all of that is so that we communicate what we intend to communicate. But I agree with you that nuanced stuff is missed by most.
Yeah, lots of these great long posts get so much engagement. There's obviously someone out there teaching people how to do it.
You mean and they even have spelling errors in the great long ones?
Yes.
So they're getting engagement?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't matter then.
No, I don't think people notice, to be honest.
No.
Okay, so project updates. I found out some hard dates for the BBC Writers' Room on that writing project. I will know if I got through the first read by the end of February. I will know if I got through the second and third reads by Easter, they've said. They'll have read everything. Moving things forward, apart from doing more writing, I've been looking for production companies, and I found one in Brighton called JumpStart. So I reached out to them and said that, if they want anything writing on spec, I'm your girl. I mean, I want to just write. And I love the idea of being given a brief to write as well. So I thought I'd just reach out to them. They may or may ignore me, I don't know. But, they were just down the road, so I thought I'd give it a go. And did you
see I sent you a competition to enter yesterday?
No, I didn't see that.
In PM, just scroll up to you often do this, by the way. You look at the last message I sent you, missing the earlier ones. I sent you a link to a thing on a website called Vocal Plus, where you've got to describe a song and what a difference it's made to you. And the prize is $5,000.
Oh, I think I skimmed over that one because I couldn't think of a song. I think I looked at it, but it was...
Well, it's a brief. It's a brief.
Good prize. And then the other one is just to let you know that we're just over 134,000 downloads. So we're moving fast now. It's going up quickly.
Heavens.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
134,028. So that'll be 135 before you know it. In a week's time, in fact.
So it will.
Yeah. Amazing. What about you? Anything?
No, nothing this week.
Okay. So who or what's impressed then?
Well, I thought I was going to have to tell you nothing at all. Until I saw this on Facebook, and I know you've seen it and liked it, but I'm going to read it to everybody. It's a piece of writing by a woman called, I'm going to put it in the show notes, her name is Heidi Priebe. And so I Googled her, of course, to find out who she was. And it turns out she's an author. She's written several books on my Myers-Briggs profile, which is INFJ, which is only shared by 1% of the world's population. People who are intuitive, highly sensitive and psychic, which I've only scratched the surface of, as you know. But she also taught me in my Googling yesterday why the thing I find most hard to bear in the entire world is being misunderstood. That goes with my profile as well. Anyway, she put into words something I know very much and which speaks to what so many of us, you and I included, are going through right now and always, actually, which is To love someone long term is to attend 1,000 funerals of the people they used to be, the people they're too exhausted to be any longer, the people they don't recognize inside themselves anymore, the people they grew out of, the people they never ended up growing into. We so badly want the people we love to get their spark back when it burns out, to become speedily found when they are lost. But it is not our job to hold anyone accountable to the people they used to be. It is our job to travel with them between each version and to honour what emerges along the way. Sometimes it will be an even more luminescent flame. Sometimes it will be a flicker that disappears and temporarily floods the room with a perfect and necessary darkness. Well, the woman knows how to put a sentence together, doesn't she?
She does, and that just shows me how visual I am, because I really enjoyed that so much more when
you read it. Yeah, well, I have to read it out loud because it's what's impressed me this week. Yeah, the reader won't know. But I discovered something else. Another author has written a book called The INFJ Writer, Cracking the Creative Genius of the World's Rarest Type. And I learned two more things about myself, which is the INFJ writer's physical health is tied to their creative output.
Oh, okay.
So if I'm not creatively outputting, my physical health would suffer. And the INFJ writer should use their natural psychic ability to do their best creative work, which I haven't even started to do yet. Wow. Do you remember your Myers-Briggs profile?
Do you know, I don't. And I'm just thinking I ought to go and do it again.
Yeah, it can be done for free.
Oh, okay. I'll go and do it then, and we'll find out.
All right. You can tell me next week.
Your INFJ.
No, I don't think that's going to be you. I think yours will start with an E.
What, extrovert?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think yes, it's feeling. So you feeling something, and hang on a minute. So I forget what it means. I'll forget. I'll Google it while you're telling me what's impressed you.
Okay. Well, I don't know if it's going to impress me, but literally someone mentioned Boost by Facebook today. And if you go to facebook.com/boost, it's actually a training course by Facebook on how to use Facebook.
Oh, how cool.
Which I thought might be worth looking at, because it actually tells you, all the things we've been talking about today, how to get engagement on your Facebook page. But I suspect it's a tool to get people to actually boost their posts.
Yes.
Otherwise it wouldn't be called Boost, would it?
But actually, it might teach them how to not waste their money.
Yeah, and it might teach them the kind of things that work for boosting, because one of my clients was telling me on our weekly Q&A call last week that she's been going through a training program, which sounded very interesting. But it might be worth just going through this Facebook Boost training course to see what
it's free, did you say?
Yeah.
And it's facebook.com/boost.
Yes.
Marvellous.
So if you're brand new to all of this, well worth a look, I would think.
And I've discovered what INFJ stands for. Okay. So INFJs are energized by time alone, brackets introverted. Focus on ideas and concepts rather than facts and details. That's intuitive. So IN is introverted and intuitive.
Right.
Make decisions based on feelings and values, feeling, and prefer to be planned and organised rather than spontaneous and flexible. So making judgments about how to be planned and organised. That does sound like me, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. A little bit.
I don't do spontaneity or flexibility, actually, which I've been poking about with, because flexibility is to do with knees. And the pain woman said, of course, knees are about flexibility.
Okay. Right, well, I'm off to do my test.
Yes, do. Let me know later. I won't be able to wait till next week, but the listener will have to wait till next week.
Okay. All right. See you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
It's a brand new day.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.